Cool nights in the 50s, perfect afternoons in the 70s, dry weather pattern. It is 10:11. We are digging into your forecast here. 77 this afternoon, basically the same as yesterday, probably a little bit lighter breeze. At times it was a bit gusty out there, so that's good for my son's tennis match. I think we're heading up to Salem, Indiana today. And again, I was showing you a little bit earlier, if you're just popping on, we had a lot of spots in the 40s this morning. This was the Indiana mesonet temperatures. This is the Kentucky mesonet. So the mesonet means a kind of a medium range network of observation stations. So within a state. So Kentucky has their mesonet, and then Indiana is trying to build their mesonet. And I'm with you, Tina. Can we keep this forecast? And actually, what's surprising about this forecast is that this is not a short little tease of fall. This is kind of early fall for the next week or so. Maybe we start to, I was looking at some of the long range data, which we'll get into with Ben on a limb here in a second, that maybe around September 5th or maybe around the 9th of September, maybe that second week of September, we start to look more summer like. But it looks like this humidity stays pretty low for a while with just a little bit warmer temperatures as we head into our Labor Day weekend, but not that much warmer. Hey, and the bird nerd segment's kind of back here because we have the fall migration beginning. There were, I think, around 90 million estimated birds flying from the north to the south. It's not quite as concentrated as the spring migration season because the birds kind of travel south at different times, depending on their food source. They notice the daylight getting shorter, the cooler air. They noticed that as well. Hey, we had some of this steam fog coming off the ponds this morning. If you saw that, Robert Fisher sharing this picture to our Indiana Skies Facebook group from Hanover, Indiana. So you've got the warm water from the summertime. Then you got this cool fall-like air on top of it. The moisture is evaporating off the surface of the pond into that cooler air, so it condenses very quickly and creates some of that fog right there. So a little bit of steam fog off the ponds this morning. All right, now these jokes are so bad. Now I've been doing stupid summer jokes here lately. Now I'm gonna since the air is feeling like autumn, we're gonna switch into stupid autumn jokes. And they're so bad, I've added a bonus one in here. Usually I do 3. I've added a 4th because of how bad these are. And I don't want my face to be on camera when I read these. That's how embarrassing. That's how embarrassing this segment is to me. But yeah, a lot of people like these corny dad jokes. But here we go. How did the tree get a new job? It had the right qualifications. All right, I got to pause how bad that was. All right. I've heard the koala bear joke before, the right qualifications. What is the best book to read in autumn? Lord of the Rings. that one's worse. Lord of the Rings. Oh, man. I'm crying how bad these are. Why did the turkey cross the road? Because it was the chicken's day off. Okay. We've had a lot of turkeys running around our road. We've got a family of turkeys that are always around. Why was the robot couple's anniversary in the fall? They were autumn mated. That's not bad. They were autumn mated. That's kind of a little risque, depending how you read that one. All right, here is today's weather history. This goes back to the year 1635. The Great Colonial Hurricane crossed the eastern tip of Long Island and moved through Providence and Boston. Winds may have reached 130 miles per hour. May have, because I don't think they had wind observations, detailed wind observations back then. And several ships were sunk. 1635. 1908, South Carolina's greatest flood ever caused flooding statewide. Every river in the state rose above flood stage, many as high as 22 feet above flood stage. 1976, this was a weird one. I didn't think it was very interesting until I read the whole thing. A weak tornado touched down briefly in Hockley Hills near Kiana, Alaska, about 20 miles north of the Arctic Circle. You don't hear about a tornado that north very often. And then 1992, many of you probably remember this. I feel like this was the first widespread news coverage of a big hurricane. At least that I remember. Hurricane Andrew made second landfall near Burns Point, Louisiana, as a Category 3 hurricane, Morgan City, Louisiana, recorded a sustained winds of 92 miles per hour and a peak gust of 108. And Louisville National Weather Service has a great weather history page, as does Indianapolis, too. So how many days until? We've been doing this countdown every day here. Before 8 p.m. sunset's 8 days away. Autumn begins in 27 days. Our average highs in the 70s in 29 days. Average highs in the 60s around October 19th in 54 days. On the allergy report, it is at high levels over the next several days. And actually, let's just keep that rolling unless we get like a rain day. The pollen level is going to stay pretty high all the way through October. And the forecast here for today, for your August 26th, the summary, 77 degrees. Just a terrific Tuesday out there, mostly sunny, northwest wind around 5 to 15. As Tina mentioned earlier, can we keep this forecast? And we kind of can. We've got no significant changes to the air mass, which we'll be digging into the weather model data here very, very shortly for you. Sunset at 8:21, northwest wind around 5 to 15. Tonight's forecast, 54, nice and cool. I think we might see some 40s outside of the towns in the cities and just a light breeze out there, mostly clear. And our sunrise at 7:08. Our forecast here for tomorrow, pretty much all sunshine for your August 27th, 50s and 40s. If you're out early around sunrise, 72 at noon and 78 for that afternoon high. Our normal high is 88, normal low 68, our sun up at 7:08, and our sunset at 8:19. The 7-day forecast rolls on with mainly dry conditions. It looks like there's kind of a reinforcing front that'll move through like late Thursday, Friday timeframe, but I think we're kind of moisture starved, so I don't think we'll get precip out of that. It looks like that's a better chance of any shower would be to our northeast. So right now, keeping it dry, upper 70s, lower 80s, stretching through this upcoming weekend. So whatever festivals are going on, whatever you have to do outside this Labor Day weekend, it looks like it's going to be fantastic. We'll be loving this nice stretch of weather. Yeah, getting a little bit too dry, perhaps, as we could be heading towards drought status in many locations around the Ohio Valley, throughout Kentucky and Indiana. Happens. I mean, if a drought happens, it's going to be this time of the year as we head into September and October, the driest months typically. That's why September is a pretty good month to get married because of the dry trend. Which that reminds me, my anniversary, September 6th, is coming up here pretty soon. So it is that time. And Mary Dale saying, this is really like fall weather. It is. It is like October out there. It is awesome. All right, let me remove that, bring up this, and we are going to switch into the weather graphics. All right, so here's the big view across the United States. And again, really quiet. The only rain that we see is down over Oklahoma, Arkansas, and into Mississippi. As we expand out our view even more, if you're interested in tropical weather, not a whole lot going on. There is a tropical storm out there, Fernand, out in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, moving away. And then out here in the Pacific, they've got Juliet. So that's a tropical storm too. So far, the tropical season kind of behaving here. Not many impacts on the continental United States. Mid-September is the peak. And so we can certainly get tropical systems into October. So the season's certainly not over with just yet. So what should we do here first? Again, this is your weather show for Southern Indiana and beyond. If you want to see a weather map, let me know. I'm bringing up the ones that I think are interesting, but again, you might find something else interesting. But I'm going to bring up we'll go CPC, Climate Prediction Center, and then we'll look at the rain, and then we'll look at see when we might see an air mass change, meaning we've got a dry air mass now. When would a summer humid air mass return to the area? So that was what we'll look at in the long range outlook here in just a second. So the Climate Prediction Center is a division of the National Weather Service. So they're looking out long range. This is the 6 to 10 day outlook. So this shows the potential for below normal temperatures through much of next week as well. So this is not just a short-lived stint of fall weather. This is kind of a prolonged fall tease here for us, or false fall, as some people call it. And this is the longer range, 8 to 14 day outlook into September. And it also shows an above normal chance of below normal temperatures. So there's a kind of a sneak peek at what we will be talking about in the long range outlook here for us. So if you like the low humidity, I think that is going to be around for quite some time. Now, and again, as I mentioned, how quiet this weather pattern is, the Storm Prediction Center does not have any risk of severe weather across the continental United States, coast to coast and border to border. You don't see that very often for the entire United States. Day 2, no risk of severe storms. That light green is basically just a garden variety chance of a thunderstorm, but not a severe thunderstorm. Level 0 out of 5. Day 3, 0 out of 5. So, and Carol Payne loving this weather as well. I think our last names have the same origin. I think that Payne is like British Isles, and then mine is German, but I think they mean about the same thing. But I might be mistaken. But I think that's what I've read. All right, let's look at the future radar, and that's going to take us into the future temperatures as well. So I'm going to bring up the GFS because there is really nothing to show anytime soon. Let's go to Thursday. That is the 28th. See if we can find this front trying to move into the region. So this is kind of a reinforcing front, meaning it's just going to reinforce this dry air that we have across the area. But here it is Thursday evening. This is at 8 p.m. And notice it's hard to gather any moisture. It's just a dry air mass that we have. So there's not much with it. And it looks like it's going to stay mostly to the northeast of us. Any little rain chance, there's kind of a little blip southeast of Indianapolis. If you're hoping for rain, it's going to be a while. You got to be really patient. If you want to keep the yard green, I've given up on that. You have to do a lot of watering. This is going into our Friday afternoon, the 29th at 5 p.m. It's got a little rain chance off to the east there Friday afternoon, but not for us. I'm just really probably not buying that rain chance because of how dry the air is. And it was very small anyway, so I did not put that on the forecast. As we back up the view, I'll go into Saturday afternoon, the 30th. And we're looking dry. I'm going into our Sunday of Labor Day, the 31st, last day. Rain chance is getting closer, but just not confident enough to really put any rain chance on the 7-day forecast. And in fact, the GFS shows this with like the closest rain chance that we have, but the Euro and the Canadian are pretty much dry at the same time. So low confidence in that. Going into Monday, September 1st, still showing dry conditions. And then going into Tuesday, so we're looking at a week from now, September the 2nd, still dry. We're going now into September 3rd, which is next Wednesday, dry. When are we going to see some green on the screen? Going into September 4th, this would be next. Oh, there we go, next Thursday. So the European weather model and the GFS weather model both are showing this potential. So we're getting far out there. So that means it is time for this. And that gives me a chance to take a sip. So maybe late next week, the model's giving us a chance of some rain. And certainly a lot of us will probably need that rain chance by then. And this is going into September 5th, which would be what, next Friday? So this is next Friday potential. So there you go. It's a needle in a haystack right now trying to find a rain chance, but late next week looks like our best shot as a front moves into the area. I wonder what that front would do. Would that just bring more cool air into the region, or would we start to shift into a hotter weather pattern behind that front as that moves through? If you're just popping on, we're looking at not this week, we're looking at late next week, the Ben on a Limb segment. So that's what we need to do now. We need to look at the air mass that we have overhead and see when we might have a change, when you might be able to anticipate the warmer air returning to the area. So one good way to do that, I want to look at the dew points now to give you some perspective, and then I want to look at the dew points in the future. So dew points to measure that water content in the air. Hotter air mass can hold more water. So hotter air, you're going to be muggier typically, unless you're in the desert, but we're not in the desert. So as we look at the broad view here, these dew points, we've had this Canadian air carve out all of that muggier air. And this, for all the folks along the Gulf and the Southeast, that isn't even that bad. Even Miami is a little drier than usual, lower 70s dew points. So how long will that fall air last? So what you're going to look at here as we look into the future is the red and the gray and the white. That is your autumn-like dry air. And then if you start to see the green and the blue, that means we're switching back into a summer weather pattern. So let's look at it together, as I really haven't perused the data very closely. So I'm going to bring back up the weather models. This is the dew point GFS weather model. So it's picking up very well on the air that we have on top of us right now. Let's jump to, like, there really isn't any change. We'll just stop every couple days. So August 29th, our Friday, there's really no change. It is not humid. Going to Saturday the 30th, dry air is still in place. All of this is comfortable air. Of course, you look over the ocean, you look down over the deep south, that is the tropical air down there. All right, I'm just going to jump ahead to Labor Day Monday. And I mean, you guys, this is a pocket of dry air that is not leaving us anytime soon. 50s dew points. It's just like the air that we have out there now, maybe a degree or two warmer in the afternoon. So even through here early next week, no change to the dew points. So let's jump ahead even farther. We'll go next Wednesday, the 3rd of September. Are we seeing any changes by then? A little bit, but it's still not bad. Remember that front that showed some rain next Thursday, Friday? Ahead of a front, you'll get a south breeze, and that'll start to drag up more moisture from the Gulf. So this still is not bad. Lower 60s is still pretty comfortable. It's still fairly dry through the middle of next week. But let's step this forward in time. We'll go to now it gets a little more humid ahead of that front. So this is the 4th of September. So next Thursday, when that rain chance is moving in. So notice with that, if this happens next week, we gather a little more humidity ahead of the front, and then there's a lot of dry air behind that front. Look at that dry. That is as clear as, you can see between two different air masses. This is that continental dry air mass. This is the more tropical air mass, subtropical, and right in the middle there's the front. So this here would be, if this moves through, a reinforcing shot of some dry air late next week after that rain chance next Thursday, Friday. Some of this is hypothetical because we're talking more than a week out. We are on the bin on a limb segment right now. But let's look here past this to next Friday. That front is basically over the area with that rain chance, but notice that drier air punching in behind it to the Ohio River. And we'll go to Saturday, September the 6th. And look at that. If that happens, we are just back probably to fall-like air again. That is a huge arrival of dry air. Oh my gosh, that shows dew points well down to the 40s. If this can be reality, that not this weekend is going to be great, but the following weekend could be phenomenal after a much needed rain chance as well. What about the temperature behind that front? This is 5 p.m. Not this Saturday, next Saturday. It's looking a lot like the air that we have out there now. So we might be in a pattern where we start to get these reinforcing shots of fall-like conditions. Not good if you're wanting that pool to stay warm necessarily. But again, phenomenal weather overall. So why is this happening? You may ask. And again, feel free to ask away about any weather question. This is your show as a reminder. I'm going to go to today because this will show the weather pattern change that we have happening now, which is, again, great weather. We've got this dive in the jet stream. So actually, let me zoom out a little bit farther. Might show it even better. It's pretty impressive here. So out here, you've got this big ridge. So you've got hot weather in the Pacific Northwest and into Canada out west. But then the jet stream is taking this huge dive all the way down over the deep south and through the Ohio Valley. And what that has done is brought down this cooler Canadian Great Lakes style air. So that is the big change. And it looks like this regime, what we call it, this weather pattern will continue overall with more of a northwest flow for us through the first week of September. Now, eventually, we might see this ridge out west start to build back in maybe the second week of September, and then we might start to gradually warm back up. So that is the overall, the upper deck of the atmosphere a lot of times will guide and open the door to these weather pattern changes. So as I mentioned, what was it, September 4th, when we have that next front that might give us a decent rain chance late next week. Check that out. Let me zoom in a little bit closer here. Another impressive trough in the jet stream. So that is what would bring some really nice air the following weekend as well. You don't see this that often necessarily. This is a huge amplification in the jet stream out west, and then a huge trough over the east. A lot of times in the fall and the winter, you'll get a big trough and you'll get some colder air dropping in, but certainly some rare air for our area for late August, early September, and all because of that huge trough in the jet stream right there. So that is some good stuff to see if you like this fall-like weather. So we'll see if this is something we'll watch day by day. If what we're going to really watch day by day as far as the long-range weather pattern, the bend on the limb segment is, are we going to get that rain chance late next week that we will need? And behind that rain chance, are we going to get another shot of Canadian air? So that sums up been on a limb, going out on a limb. Cheers to you if you're still hanging on through our deep dive of the weather pattern here, the Weather Nerd segment at 10:35 on your Tuesday morning. I just find it interesting that even when the weather is nice, we have fun things to talk about, like the fall conditions that are possibly on the way for the long range weather pattern here for us. So good stuff there. Let me see if we go into even longer out, like the September 9th time frame. So let me bring that. So this, if you were just watching, we're talking about a dip in the jet stream, but check this out. So this is September 9th. This is where we would see a possible another weather pattern change. Back to more summer, like the jet stream goes up like this. So this would start to build in more heat, maybe around the second week of September. This is around September 8th, September 9th. So we might have a good couple weeks this week, next week on the cool side, following week, second week of September, maybe we're into more summer-like conditions returning to the area. But we'll watch it, day by day and see if how it's all shaping up. And this shows around the September 8th timeframe that warmth building back into the central United States and getting closer to us. And then they begin to cool down where it's hot right now in the Pacific Northwest.